I'm only technical assistant here. Thank you so much. Be patient with that. When you're forming totally volunteer, sometimes there's quite a number of volunteers coming up front. Sometimes all of a sudden everybody busy, occupied their real job beside the volunteering. So this year is a little bit harder on me, but we are okay. So be aware. So here, there, I'm stopping with the end of the meeting participant and showing this. That before that, so thank you again. So many birthday wishes to me for my 83 years only. So God help me to be with us together here. That is a main focus for present is the most gifted to my life. Before that, today's climate change effect on our food security is a big issue in global and Canada and the economy. Before that, then the acknowledgement. I would like to begin by acknowledging the indigenous peoples of all the lands that we are on today. While we meet today on the virtual platform, I would like to take a moment to acknowledge the importance of the lands which we each call home. We do this to reaffirm our commitment and responsibility in improving relationships between nations and to improving our own understanding of local indigenous peoples and their cultures. From coast to coast to coast, we acknowledge the ancestral and unceded territory of all the Inuit, Métis, and the First Nation peoples that call this land home. Toronto, situated under Treaty 13. Thank you so much to having with us in this afternoon with us for our 6 workshops. So our guest speakers, you are some of them already familiar with Janet Park Archibald, graduated from University of Winnipeg. She's born in Saskatchewan, but grew up in Winnipeg with a Bachelor of Science of Biology and a Bachelor Arts in Psychology, facilitator and educator with the Academy of Learning, which English is a second language, teaching and private tutoring. She's been doing it. Guest speaker with the Feathers Finch Seniors Society. I really appreciate her contribution to us. Now they had to get the speakers. Everybody occupied really bad, but she entered little slightly into senior groups. So I appreciate it. Thank you so much, Janet. All yours. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming and attending my presentation on climate change effects on food security and economy. As I have done all along, I do make my PPT slides available for your review. I pass them on to Munja and so that you can review what we learned. In addition, my narration is also available for you to have. You just have to request it to Munja, and she'll forward you the narration as well. We will take questions after my presentation is done, and I hope you enjoy today's session. Thank you. So what is the state of global food security today, and what is the role of climate change? The number of people suffering acute food insecurity increased from 135 million in 82 countries by June 2022 as the war in Ukraine, supply chain disruptions, and the continued economic fallout of the COVID-19 pandemic pushed food prices to all-time highs. Global food insecurity had already been rising due in large part to climate phenomena. Global warming is influencing weather patterns, causing heat waves, heavy rainfall, and droughts. Rising food commodity prices in 2021 were a major factor in pushing approximately 30 million additional people in low-income countries toward food insecurity. At the same time, the way that food is often produced today is a big part of the problem. It's recently been estimated that the global food system is responsible for about a third of greenhouse gas emissions, second only to the energy sector. It is the number one source of methane and biodiversity loss. In 2021, it was the third costliest year on record for climate-related disasters, totaling $329 billion US. More frequent and intense droughts, floods, and storms were reported across the globe. These caused widespread food insecurity. It crippled agricultural production and devastated livelihoods, with people forced from their homes. These patterns are in line with findings from one of the latest assessment reports from the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, otherwise known as the IPCC, which issued grave warnings that climate change is already causing dangerous and widespread disruption. If emissions are not produced, the risk of food supply shocks will greatly increase, with harvests failing simultaneously in multiple major food producing countries. This will lead to shortages and price spikes. Food productivity growth is already down 21% because of global heating. Climate change does not act in isolation, but compounds existing vulnerabilities and makes risks increasingly complex and difficult to manage. The IPCC report highlighted that the world risks surpassing 1.5 degrees Celsius of warming in the next 2 decades, which, even if temporarily exceeded, would result in irreversible impacts. Every inhabited region of the world experiences the effects of climate change, but not all in the same way. Over 40% of the global population already lives in places that are highly vulnerable to climate impacts. These communities contribute least to the problem, but are faced with the worst impact and have limited means to cushion the blows. Global priorities for climate adaptation action: transforming food systems. The range of activities that produce, process, and transport food to our tables are neither equitable nor sustainable. The lack of diversity in our food systems, reliance on polluting practices, and exposure to disruptions such as conflict are threatening global food security. We must urgently reverse the negative relationship between food systems and climate change. So who is most affected by climate impacts on food security? About 80% of the global population most at risk from crop failures and hunger from climate change are in sub-Saharan Africa, South Asia, and Southeast Asia, where farming families are disproportionately poor and vulnerable. A severe drought caused by an El Niño weather pattern or climate change can push millions more people into poverty. This is true even in places like the Philippines and Vietnam, which have relatively high incomes, but where farmers often live at the edge of poverty and food price increases have an outsized impact on poor urban customers. How might climate change affect farming and food security in the future? Up to a certain point, rising temperatures and CO2 can be beneficial for crops, but rising temperatures also accelerate evapotranspiration from plants and soils, and there must also be enough water for crops to thrive. For areas of the world already water constrained, climate change will increasingly cause adverse impacts on agricultural productions through diminishing water supplies, increases in extreme events like floods and severe storms, heat stress, and increased prevalence of pests and diseases. Above a certain point of warming, and particularly above an increase of 2 degrees Celsius in average global temperatures, it becomes increasingly more difficult to adapt and increasingly more expensive. In countries where temperatures are already extremely high, such as the Sahel Belt of Africa or South Asia, rising temperatures could have a more immediate effect on crops, such as wheat, that are less heat tolerant. Without solutions, falling crop yields, especially in the world's most food insecure regions, will push more people into poverty. An estimated 43 million people in Africa alone could fall below the poverty line by 2030 as a result. So how can agriculture adapt to climate change? It is possible to reduce emissions and become more resilient, but doing so often requires major social, economic, and technological change. There are a few key strategies. Use water more efficiently and effectively, combined with policies to manage demand. Other options include better management of water demand, as well as the use of advanced water accounting systems and technologies to assess the amount of water available, including soil moisture sensors and satellite evapotranspiration measurements. Such measures can facilitate techniques such as an alternative wetting and drying of rice paddies, which saves water and reduces methane emissions at the same time. Switch to less thirsty crops. For example, rice farmers could switch to crops that require less water, such as maize or legumes. Doing so would also help reduce methane emissions, because rice is a major source of agri-food emissions. However, a culture that has been growing and consuming rice for thousands of years may not so easily switch to another less thirsty, less emitting crop. We can improve soil health. This is hugely important. Increasing organic carbon in soil helps it better retain water and allows plants to access water more readily, increasing resilience to drought. It also provides more nutrients without requiring as much chemical fertilization, which is a major source of emissions. Farmers can restore carbon that has been lost by not tilling soil and by using cover crops, particularly with large roots, in the rotation cycle rather than leaving fields fallow. Such nature-based solutions to environmental challenges could deliver 37% of climate change mitigation necessary to meet the goals of the Paris Agreement. But getting farmers to adopt these new practices will take time, awareness raising, and training. In places where farm plots are small and farmers cannot afford to let fields lie fallow or even rotate with leguminous crops, improving soil health could pose a challenge. What is the World Bank doing to help countries build food security in the face of climate change? The World Bank Group's Climate Change Action Plan, which includes the years 2021 to 2025, is stepping up support for climate-smart agriculture across the agriculture and food value chains, and via policy and technological interventions to enhance productivity, improve resilience, and reduce greenhouse gas emissions. The bank also helps countries tackle food loss and waste and manage flood and drought risks. For example, in Niger, a bank-supported program aims to benefit 500,000 farmers and pastoralists in 44 communes through the distribution of improved, drought-tolerant seeds, more efficient irrigation, and expanded use of forestry for farming and conservation agricultural techniques. To date, the project has helped 336,518 farmers more sustainably manage their land and brought 79,983 hectares under more sustainable farming practices. So what does climate adaptation and food security look like in Canada? Recent reports and studies, such as Natural Resource Canada's Canada in a Changing Climate report series, indicates that Canada's climate is changing. Temperatures are increasing. Precipitation patterns are becoming more variable, and the frequency and intensity of some extreme events have increased, such as floods, intense rainstorms, and wildfires. These changes are anticipated to continue to intensify into the future and will exacerbate current issues facing Canada's agriculture and food system. In Canada, the agriculture and food sector are recognized as being both one of the most climate impacted and one of the most adaptable sectors in Canada. Climate impacts on Canada's agriculture and food sector are complex, and different regions are and will experience climate impacts differently across the country. Climate change can also result in benefits, as well as new threats and challenges to Canada's agriculture and food system. Climate impacts can also reverberate down the entire food system and supply chains, as well as impacting communities and rural livelihoods, the foundations of our agriculture system. Adding to the complexity, our agricultural systems need to adapt to a suite of climate change impacts that interact with other factors, such as economic pressures, an increasing global population, changing human dietary preferences, increased input costs and energy prices, competing land use pressures, and policy-related economic pressures. Food security is a complex issue, and there are many factors which affect whether a person is food insecure, such as the availability of food that is healthy, nutritious, and culturally appropriate, and the financial and physical access to food. With the world's population projected to increase by 2 billion people by 2050, Canada has an important role to play in supporting food security at home and abroad. Successfully adapting Canada's agriculture and food system to climate change will make important contributions towards improving food security. Indigenous knowledge and lived experience, as well as research on Northern's needs and priorities, are essential to understanding how climate change affects Northern food security. Climate change affects different dimensions of food security from the lens of Northern Indigenous peoples, acknowledging their strong relationship with land and dependence on country foods for nutrition and community well-being. Bridging evidence from Indigenous knowledge and research, the multifaceted influence of climate warming and environmental change on foodability, food accessibility, food quality, and the need for adaptation need to be explored. We also must explore how communities can develop or expand current environmental monitoring programs to focus on a variety of indicators that capture the complex influence of climate change on country food security. What are the findings from the Climate Change Impacts Country Food? Evidence from the Indigenous Knowledge Working Group. Harvesting, preparing and consuming country food such as wildlife, fish, berries, and plants are important practices passed down through generations in Northern communities. Climate-driven changes in Northern regions have been affecting the ability of communities to harvest and consume country foods. Late freeze-up, irregular spring melt, warmer or colder winds, thawing permafrost, loss of long-term ice, changing precipitation patterns, and coastal erosions. These all affect travel to traditional harvesting areas. There are also concerns about how climate change affects the quality and availability of country foods. Some Inuit have noticed that the quality of meat has declined. For example, people have seen worms in lake trout and abnormal caribou livers. As well, Inuit have learned that reduced annual sea ice means that marine food webs are more exposed to air pollutants, such as mercury, from the southern regions. This affects the quality of marine food. Although it is well known that natural cycles can cause a number of animals and their migration routes to change, many Indigenous people are concerned about the added influence of climate change on fluctuations in wildlife abundance. Indigenous knowledge of how climate change is affecting food security can be further explored by examining how climate change impacts the availability, accessibility, and quality of country foods. Food availability. Is there enough? Country food availability is determined by wildlife and plant abundance, which is the number of individuals of a particular species or herd, or the total dry weight of plants. Alternatively, it is determined that wildlife and plant diversity is the presence of different types of country food species. For country food to be available, wildlife and plants need to be abundant and diverse. Several factors influence the changes in abundance and diversity of Arctic wildlife and plants as the climate warms. These can act in opposition For example, changes in environmental conditions, such as thinner ice or deeper snow, can make it harder for caribou to travel and cause them to use more energy during migration. At the same time, longer growing seasons caused by warming can improve the quality and quality of the plants that wildlife eats. This could provide more energy, which may offset the extra energy used during migration. Because the influence of warming on country foods is complex, it is hard to be sure how it will affect overall availability. We do know that diversity and abundance of food species are changing faster as the Arctic warms. Ensuring food security requires sharing knowledge and adapting to new opportunities in ways that support and promote Indigenous knowledge, culture, and wellness. Food accessibility. Can we get it? Climate change impacts where country food species are found and hunters' ability to travel in traditional territories. It also affects cultural food practices. Research has shown, okay, hold on, we're just going to wait for the
annual fire alarm checking time because of spring. So
sorry, everybody. There we go. Okay. Research has shown that climate change challenges hunters' ability to travel safely, makes harvesting more expensive due to unpredictable weather, increased travel distance, and increased time on the land. Also affects the distribution of country food species due to both environmental factors and new predators. Climate change impacts can make it impossible to reach hunting areas when the animals are present. Climate-driven environmental conditions that impact food accessibility include the following: reduced sea ice extent, unstable ice conditions, changing time and duration of ice freeze-up and breakup, changing water levels, more frequent and stronger storms, unpredictable winds, changing precipitation patterns, increasing erosion, and thawing permafrost. These changes can force hunters to harvest another species, such as fish, if they cannot safely reach caribou hunting grounds. Sometimes changing conditions may enable longer fishing season. Unpredictable environmental conditions can also make travel routes that have been used for generations less reliable and more costly to use. This can make it more difficult to pass on knowledge between generations and therefore hard for elders to help young hunters develop their skills. If hunters are unable to access preferred food species, they may bring home less food and have less to share with elders and other community members. Food quality. Do we want to eat it? Country food quality refers to the nutritional value, the cultural food preferences, taste, smell, appearance, and texture, and safety of foods. Country foods are a major source of essential nutrients. They play a vital role in maintaining health. Climate change impacts on country food access and availability can affect diet and nutrition. For example, if changes force hunters to choose lower quality, easy to capture, and abundant species over high quality, hard to capture caribou, this can affect the nutrition and health of indigenous communities. Climate change is also influencing food safety. Warming temperatures affect the number of contaminants that travel to the north from other areas. This can impact the levels of environmental contaminants in country foods, such as PCBs, mercury, and lead. Environmental monitoring, responsive health advisories, and balanced consumption advice can help limit exposure to these contaminants. Can everybody hear me when it's buzzing? Yes, it's okay? Okay. Warming temperatures can also decrease food safety and cause foodborne illness. For example, illness from seafood is projected to increase in northern Canada due to warming ocean water. Climate change affects food preparation and storage practices that depend on cool temperatures. This can reduce food quality and safety. For example, above ground air drying fish and meat, below ground cold storage on or near permafrost, and fermentation do not work well when it is too warm. Community freezers and cut and wrap facilities can help prevent foodborne diseases. It is essential to recognize food safety problems quickly and educate the public, especially in the context of climate change. Relationship with the land is fundamental for Northern Indigenous peoples and provides the foundation for local belief systems, identity, knowledge, and livelihoods. Their close connection with the land shapes the way they experience and understand environmental change and the way they respond to it. As fellow Canadians, we can look to the Northern Indigenous peoples and their life experiences with climate change and their food economy to better our knowledge and understanding of how climate change is impacting the food chain. As people around the world increasingly feel the impacts of climate change, the collective call for action grows louder and louder. The impacts of climate change threaten a complex global food system that is already struggling to meet the needs of growing and changing population. Today, 821 million people, which is 1 in 9, are undernourished. These people experience a shortage of food each day, while over twice that number face moderate food insecurity and frequently compromise on the quality or quantity of food they consume. At the same time, over 2 billion people around the world are overweight or obese, and over 1 billion suffer from micronutrient deficiency sometimes referred to as the hidden hunger. The number of hungry and malnutrition people worldwide has grown in tandem with the rise in human conflict and forced displacement. Slow economic recovery from 2008 global financial crisis and food price spikes, and the increasing frequency and magnitude of climate-related extreme events have helped reverse years of progress fighting global hunger. These combined, interrelated factors have placed unprecedented stress on humanitarian organizations. So in conclusion, my last recommendations after researching this information is to 1, establish a position of leadership in climate change and food security international forums. 2, support domestic efforts to promote climate resilience in food systems. And lastly, raise the profile of climate-related food in your community. And with those last recommendations, that is the conclusion of my presentation today on climate change effects on food security and economy. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much. I know it's inflation rate, according to even Canadian bank rate, it goes up. They're not really stable, going to be down yet. Also, housing crisis, affordability of housing. So this addition to food security issues. So poor people get the poorer, richer people more richer. So this is based on more so because of climate change or the production of agricultural land, nature of resources are reducing. So thank you so much. And then any questions or comments? If you want to participate we're talking about the food security and insecurity getting worse in that. I think so few of us among the Bathurst-Finch Senior Society core member, we took a few years ago. Now they changed Ryerson University to Toronto Metropolitan University. There is a continuing education course for about the teaching by them. What about the what is really food security? What cause make up food insecurity in North America, such as such a rich country, even Canada? So I took that course, so understanding and therefore implementing how I can be careful, less wasting, less shopping, no waste and food, because so many hunger or undernourished people in Canada. Believe or not, it's true. Any comment? Okay, thank you so much. And then I think we're going to continue on this last session going to be come up next week. It's a kind of conclusion of a climate crisis as a community member, as a citizen in Canada, or a person in globally. What the action plan should be done. So speaker going to be, I ask to city staff who are expert about the environmental and issues in GTA. Also, he is one of a funder for this program. So he accepted become our last session as a conclusion. So hopefully we can learn how we can do better for combating climate crisis. So thank you so much for that. And last closing, pardon us for kind of noise behind the scene. which is okay, but quite disturbing for speakers. Sorry about that. So nothing I can control about the condo board choose today and tomorrow is uh, what the fire alarm checking things happen to be. They said nothing we can do in your suite. So I requested. I went to the property management office even yesterday. They said nothing they can do about my workshop. Nothing to do with them. But I tried. I tried. But thank you so much, all your participants. Also, spare with your feedback is really, really appreciated. Some people had some kind of challenges. Even they shared what is a challenge, why they it's hard to understand these things. We appreciate it. No comment is less value than other. So please feedback to fill that up and submit to us because almost the last session. So even previously you missed that. I may not preparing final report another month or so within 30 days. So I have to obligate to file the final note. So if you missed a few feedback form, you can still doing it. So I really appreciate that. Also, our fund, as you know, that the Neighborhood Climate Action Fund, which is they started, I think, at 2,500, 3,000, now up to 7,500. So you can give us a splendid idea for next session. We're going to be try again. We may not make it. We may make it, but my position, I keep trying it. That's all. Squeeze my brain with your feedback. So hopefully works for next year's program, which we can continue and engage for climate crisis issues and also well-being issues for that. And also as a community health ambassador over North Toronto health partner, and I keep sending it health information. That's a very legitimate resources I'm sending to you. I didn't make it up. I didn't pick up the untrue news site, all the government site from Ontario or government, Health Ontario. Especially we emphasizing, especially Toronto North Hospital and St. Michael's, all the Toronto uh, hospital stakeholders try to emphasize prevention of many field of cancer. So a couple days ago, yesterday, 2 days ago, I sent it to Cancer Care Ontario. That's all under Ontario Health provincial government on the cancer drug coverage. Some people, some couldn't get it coverage, I heard. So I don't know. In myself, I don't have to deal with any cancer yet in or around my neighborhood. So I feel the cancer drug coverage funding and reimbursement, the Cancer Care Ontario site. So I shared that. Also, right our neighborhood Bedders Finch Union, Unison community health service. So if you walk in, sometimes you can make an appointment. If you can, they can get some answers, whatever, how you can get. A lot of people in Ontario, they don't have a family doctor yet. That's surprisingly. Many, they still cannot get a family practitioner yet. So you can contact them or you can contact me, email me. I try my best. 2 weeks ago, I shared already 6 in family. A single mother has 5 kids. They not undocumented Canadian, undocumented. That means illegally staying here. Besides that, she was a battered woman, abused by husband. So she's a single woman. She didn't know where to get the vaccinated her children, all age group. So somehow they got them. She got my email address. I connect a lot of workers, city. I think of my age, tell you I have a lot of connections. I don't have authority, but the connection. So she got the helper. So she got the all the vaccinated herself, plus her kids. So any situation, I cannot promise I can get the all the. I do a lot of refugee help too. I've been doing last 5, 6 years in Toronto. A lot of refugee uh, from North Korea. Also, a student who willing to study here. They don't have a status. So I connected to get a lot of vaccination for them. So I can try my best, my connection, my ability to get them help. So anybody around you, those people, let me link. So I cannot promise, as you know, but I try to get some help, some down in the road. Also, mental health issue is really crucial nowadays. So I do volunteering Hong Kong Mental Health Association, been around 40 years in Toronto, especially dealing with racial minority from Asia, include Korean and the Vietnamese, Cantonese, Mandarin, so Cambodian. So any who cannot share their difficulty to overcome mental health illness, maybe I can try to get the help from that association or at the city level or Health Canada. So thank you so much. And anything else? Last comment, anything? It's the same time next week is our 7th session. So please, still one more session, last session, but please bring your friends. So one more session, we can learn more through this special step from city. So that's I really asking you. Thank you so much. Have a rest of the day. It is all yours. And thank you. Thank you, speakers and all the members and that. So who spend a lovely afternoon with us. That is a more than monetary financing support to us. Unfortunately, Brothers Pinch Senior Society don't have a CRA numbers in place because that is initially my choice. I don't want to go through the CRA hiring CA, so auditing every year to submitting. So I'm not that big person's vision, small but very solid. So last 8 years I was okay with the Better Pension Society. So I want to continue on whatever available for grant for this kind of platform. I will keep trying. So being with us is a biggest support and your thoughtful minds. So that make me keep going. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of the day. Thank you.